All right, fourth graders, I'm going down to investigate what's going on with the porpoises. If I do not return, you know what happened. All right, guys, are you here to figure out what happened down there? Some crazy stuff happened is all I have to say. Give me 1 second to get set up and we will get into this story. I don't think you guys are ever going to believe this. So I feel like I'm never going to say it as good as this story's going to say it. So we better just hop into the lesson so you guys can find out what happened. First off, let's look at this lesson that we're doing today. We are learning to analyze the structure of the text. So in this text, how it is set up is it's in sequence. So it's like a story. So it's telling you it's in chronological order. Like it starts here and it's going down. And we're going to look at that structure to understand what is happening in the story. You know you are successful today when we can look back at the order of events in the story and describe what is happening in our own words. Vocabulary. Our first word is depth. So, looking at that picture, the depth of this water. And let's see if you can figure out what that word means. It's beautiful down here, she thought. She began snapping pictures and recording the temperature and her depth below the surface. So this is while they're on their dive, and if you think about it, it's kind of maybe the deeper she gets. So a place far below a surface or far inside something. So her depth is how deep she's going. So that's your first choice of a vocabulary word for today. Or your second word is scrutinize. So if we look at that guy with his microphone, with his magnifying glass, let's look at what this word is like in a sentence. Let's go back to the hotel so you can analyze this sample. I have a feeling it will be totally different from the first sample. I bet our deep sea water will have some answers. Also, I have pictures I want to scrutinize. Think about what could scrutinize mean. Did you think it was to examine very closely? Then you're right. Good job. All right. So again, your assignment today is to make this same table that we did in the other lesson. You are either going to be doing it in Seesaw or on your own piece of paper. Put that vocabulary word that you choose in the middle, and then fill out the definition, your 2 synonyms, your 2 antonyms, a sentence, and a picture to help you remember it. Some other vocabulary words we just need to know for when we're reading today is a barge. So this is a picture of a barge. It is a flat-bottom boat used to carry goods along waterways. Another vocabulary word that will help us later is vacant. It's empty or not filled. So that's another word you could choose to do for your lesson today, vacant. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our reading. Looks like we already have a focus question, and I'm not sure if I told you what to do when we get to these. So that stop sign is telling you to, hey, stop. You need to look at this question because you're going to need to answer it. So it says, how do the fishermen's weekly observations about the porpoises help the science squad? So it might not necessarily be on this page. It might be on the next few pages. So, hello, Jada began. We're wondering what has been happening to the porpoises. A girl over there just told us the strangest story about a hungry porpoise. Well now, I used to see quite a few, said one of the fishermen. I take out my boat, Lucky Duck, at exactly 4 a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I used to see 4 or 5 pods of porpoises, maybe 6 or 7 in each pod. So around 24 to 35 porpoises, Cam said. You're right. That's exactly what I used to see. The man smiled at Cam. Jada looked up from her notes and asked, what about now? Well, young lady, today I only saw 1 pod. 3 porpoises were in that one. And I also saw two porpoises swimming alone. That's very unusual. They had this vacant, so kind of empty look in their eyes. It was strange. So today you saw 5 porpoises? Only 5? Cam was shocked. Exactly. That's just what I saw, the fisherman shrugged. Jada typed as fast as she could into her tablet. And did you happen to notice any odd behavior? Not that I can recall this very minute, the fisherman continued, but that barge that came out of nowhere sure dredged up a mess, scaring our fish so badly that all of us headed home with empty coolers. The other fishermen grumbled in agreement. It said DDJ on the side of it, or at least I think that's what it said. It was hard to see. The fisherman continued. Thank you, Cam said. Do you mind if we come back if we have any other questions? Anytime, anytime, said the fisherman. So let's pause. It says here, how does their observations help the science squad? So the first thing that I noticed, hopefully you noticed this too, is the amount of porpoises they used to see. It says here they used to see 24 to 35 porpoises. And now how many do they see? They only saw 5. So that tells us, yeah, it agrees with what other people have said, that the porpoise population has declined. Then we also learned from the fishermen about the fish. So those hungry porpoises, it makes sense because their food is gone, and what is making their food leave? The fisherman said that barge, that word we learned about, this flat boat, is dredging up a bunch of stuff. It's like mixing up all the water, and it's scaring the fish away. So that's what helped them figure out what's going on with the porpoises. Now let's see what these two are up to. Well, that was interesting, said Jada as they walked up the beach. Cam nodded in agreement. Let's get a snack and wait for the others to get back, he suggested. They headed to a nearby crab shack and sat down at a table. Jada started snapping pictures of the view as they waited for their food to arrive. So this one doesn't have a stop sign. It was just something I wanted to put in there for you to think about because it's going with sequence. It's looking at the order of events. Meanwhile, the rented outboard motorboat rocked in the current as Kate put on her diving gear and pulled a camera and some sample bottles out of her backpack. Then she attached the underwater camera and the water sample bottles to her diving belt, checked their location on her tablet, and compared it to the barge's location. They were on target. Okay, I'm ready, she told Reggie. Good luck and be careful. I'll be here when you come up. So now you see why I was diving down in the water to see what's going on with the porpoises. And let's look, how does she prepare? She put on her diving gear and she got her camera ready and her sample bottles ready. So it's telling us she's got to get ready, then she's going to dive, and then we'll see what happens next. Looking at that sequence of events. Ooh, this picture is super cool. Kate saluted him and flipped backwards into the water and disappeared into the depths. So she's down into the bottom. It's beautiful down here, she thought. She began snapping pictures and recording the temperature and her depth below the surface. She got the water sample and recorded the temperature again. Looking down, she realized the water below her looked murky and muddy, and there were no fish. In fact, she was the only thing swimming around. It was strange that there weren't any fish in this part of the ocean. After all, it wasn't that far offshore. Kate dove deeper. She could only just make out a structure that reminded her of playground equipment, a jungle gym, and an enclosed slide. She snapped pictures, but didn't expect to see anything because of the shadowy water. Then she slowly rose to the surface. It took you long enough, Reggie said when her head bobbed up from the ocean. Kate glared at him through her mask. Thank you, Kate, Reggie said. That's more like it, Kate said as she handed Reggie the water sample, thermometer, and camera. Then she removed her diving gear. Let's go back to the hotel so you can analyze this sample. I have a feeling it will be totally different from the first sample. I bet our deep sea water will have some answers. Also, I have pictures I want to scrutinize. All right. So again, we're focusing on sequence. So let's look at what steps does the science squad take to gather information to find out why the porpoises are in peril. So I like to take notes when it comes to these kind of questions because there's more than one thing we're looking at. So what steps does the science squad take to gather information? So first thing, they're gathering that information. So it's the first thing they do. So get your piece of paper ready. So now that our piece of papers are ready, the first thing they're doing to gather information about the porpoises is what these two are doing. And what are they doing? They're talking to the fishermen. So I'm going to put down. So it is, who was it talking to the fishermen? Jada and, was it Reggie? Cam. Reggie or Cam, yeah. So they interview the fishermen. That's the first step that they took. Interview those fishermen. Then we scooch on over and we look at, well, what kind of stuff is Kate doing during her dive to get information? Kate took pictures and temperatures during her dive. Then she also mentioned she wanted to go look at some pictures. She wanted to go look at those pictures to get more information. And she wanted to check those and check the water samples that she took. So that's just some of the sequence that they did to figure out what's going on with those porpoises. So we see how it's kind of like in time with what's happening. So now it's your turn. So which events in this part of the story are happening at the same time? Cite specific details that let you know. So as we're talking about sequence, there is something in the story that's actually happening at the same time, even though we learn about it kind of in order. So if you're doing this in Seesaw, underline your evidence and give me that information. If you're not doing it in Seesaw, like we always say, just put it in your notebook and bring it with you when you go to class. Thank you so much for coming today, guys, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.